History is draped in mystery wherever you are in the world. As modern people who cannot physically experience the ancient world, all we have are the relics and ruins left behind by those who came before us, only able to piece together our understanding of the past from what is left. Typically, some of the strangest and most difficult mysteries come from the ancient world, either from times that predated writing, or from our very first civilizations that gained a foothold in the Middle or Near East. One such civilization, as you may have guessed from the title of today's video, is ancient Egypt. Egypt has historically been closely associated with mystery. From its cryptic tombs to its pantheon of old gods, there is much we still do not know about these ancient people. Historical records from Egypt are some of the oldest known to man, first emerging as early as 3150 B.C.E., making this a civilization that arose when much of the world was still beginning to develop the technologies that would permit such a lifestyle. For comparison, consider this. By the time the last woolly mammoths disappeared from Wrangel Island off the coast of Russia, the Pyramids of Giza had already been standing for around 500 years. There are literally thousands of years of history to be studied here, which leaves plenty of time for some of the strangest mysteries mankind has ever known to emerge. In today's video, we will be examining some of these mysteries in close detail, from lost tombs to iconic monuments, through to bizarre superstitions and missing people. Prepare to embark on a journey into the depths of human history to discover some of the very strangest mysteries of the long-lost ancient Egyptians. Nefertiti, queen of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt and royal wife to Pharaoh Akhenaten, is one of the most famous ancient Egyptian rulers ever to live. Possibly ruling as a couple, Nefertiti and her husband were notable for overhauling the religious policies of Egypt from around 1351 to 1334 BCE, founding the world's first monotheistic religion, Atonism. Associated with beauty and wealth, many depictions of the queen have emphasized her graceful figure and femininity. One large mystery that surrounds the queen, however, is her death and burial. Until 2012, all depictions and mentions of Nefertiti in the historical record seems to have ceased after 12 years of Akhenaten's reign as pharaoh. Historians believe that this was a clear indication that the queen had died around this time and began to speculate on potential causes. Various injuries or disease associated with a known plague from the same year were put forward, but nothing concrete was found. Then in 2012, a discovery was made that would suggest that Nefertiti was still alive, at least 16 years into her husband's reign. Inscriptions mentioning the great royal wife, his beloved, mistress of the two lands, Neferraten Nefertiti, were discovered in a limestone quarry at Deir Abu Hinis in Egypt, indicating that she and Akhenaten were both still on the throne. This, however, is the last mention of the queen in the historical record. The real mystery begins when we discuss what happened after Nefertiti died, specifically the location and circumstances behind her burial. For all of Nefertiti's life, she was destined to be buried alongside her husband in the royal tomb of Akhenaten, which was built in the royal wadi at Amama. However, she is not, and she has never been there. We know that she died shortly after her husband, and that a shabti, or burial figurine, was constructed for her after she died. But all of the potential tombs that would have housed Nefertiti's body seem to be unfinished, or without burial chambers entirely. Many theories have attempted to explain the burial or lack thereof. Archaeologist Nicholas Reeves, for example, suggested that Nefertiti may have been buried alongside Tutankhamun, her husband's successor, but scans of his tomb have revealed nothing of the sort. Some of the most likely previous candidates for Nefertiti's body are two female mummies that were buried in the tomb of Amenhotep II in the Valley of Kings. Known as the Elder Lady and the Younger Lady, these women have each been suggested to be the missing queen, but many historians doubt either one to be the genuine article. Following DNA testing on the Elder Lady, historians found that this mummy was almost certainly that of Akhenaten's mother, Tia, and not Nefertiti. Subsequently, the Younger Lady was studied by archaeologists from the University of York in England, with the suspicion that she may have been Nefertiti. Alas, this was not the case, and it is likely that she was in fact Tutankhamun's mother, the unknown daughter of Amenhotep III and Tia, Nefertiti's sister-in-law. So where is Nefertiti today? The short answer is we simply do not know. What we do know is that to find her resting place would surely prove beneficial to understanding the religious changes of Egypt throughout the reign of Akhenaten, and would put a hugely important spotlight on how the queen may have lived her life. All we can do for now is sit back and wait for the day this happens. Whereas Nefertiti's tomb and mummy are lost to the historical record, another pharaoh of ancient Egypt has been found, but it's the circumstances surrounding her death itself that are mysterious. Hatshepsut, who ruled alongside her husband Pharaoh Thutmose II, was the fifth pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt, presiding over the kingdom from around 1479 BC to roughly 1458 BC. Throughout the course of her reign, Hatshepsut commissioned many trade routes and building projects, including the construction of monuments, shrines, temples, and sculptures to enhance the cultural and religious significance of Egypt. She was one of the most accomplished rulers of ancient Egypt, according to her own royal inscriptions, that is, gaining the assistance of priests to create a story of divine ascension to the throne, raising her profile amidst the ancient Egyptian populace. On paper, she seems to have been a popular ruler, so how did she disappear without a trace, alongside active attempts to strike her name from the ancient Egyptian historical record? Hatshepsut disappears from all records following the 22nd of May, 1459 BC. 2 years later, her successor Thutmose III took the reins as the sole ruler of the kingdom, which likely indicates that Hatshepsut had passed away. There is no recorded explanation for her death in the historical record, and to this day we do not know how she died. Without an explanation, it does look as though the pharaoh simply went missing from history, never to be seen or heard from again. As such, theories on her cause of death have ranged from discussing illness and injury to potential foul play. The latter theory arises from the way Hatshepsut's legacy was treated following her demise. Thutmose III ruled Egypt until 1425 BC, and towards the end of his reign, it seems that a deliberate attempt to undo Hatshepsut's work as pharaoh, removing her name and face from ancient Egypt altogether, was made by Thutmose and his son. Images of Hatshepsut were chiseled from monuments and walls, and her name was removed from documents and inscriptions, replacing them with those of Thutmose I and II. Where this could not be done, new stones were added to existing structures to simply cover up evidence that Hatshepsut was ever pharaoh, and further evidence suggests that such structures were torn down altogether. So how can we explain this? Some historians have interpreted Hatshepsut's disappearance as Thutmose III attempting to solidify his reign and hold over Egypt, removing all instances of his predecessor's reign, in an attempt to bring the attention towards himself and his son. But this does not explain why he would swap Hatshepsut's name with Thutmose I and II rather than his own. Other theories discuss the idea that Hatshepsut was the target of such posthumous censorship as a result of her identity as a woman, with Thutmose III attempting to bring about a new phallocentric society where traditional gender roles were customary. Swapping her name with those of her male predecessors would have been key in achieving this. In any case, these investigations into the demise of Hatshepsut and her name are continuing to progress. Her mummy and tomb are now known to historians and are in possession of those who intend to learn more about her life and ultimate passing. Maybe eventually we will know the truth behind this strange mystery. Outside of the country itself, when Egypt comes to mind, pyramids will surely follow. Egypt is linked very closely with its unique and convoluted history, and the pyramids are a flagship of this. Around 80 distinct pyramids are known across Egypt in the modern day, and many more are thought to have been lost to the ravages of time across the course of history. While the most famous of the pyramids can be found in Giza, not far from the modern capital city of Cairo, the structures exist throughout the entirety of the country and were built as religious monuments in which to house the tombs of deceased pharaohs. The ancient Egyptians were among the first people to denote an afterlife in their religion, and death played a key part of everyday life. It was not feared in the same sense that it can be in the modern day, but rather observed as the next stage of existence. When an ancient Egyptian died, they believed that they would be transported to the next world, the afterlife, referred to in Egyptian mythology as Aru, or the Field of Reeds. This picturesque realm of eternal life, filled with lush hunting grounds and fertile farming land, was the pinnacle of existence for the ancient Egyptians, and the pyramids were constructed as a reminder of that. Strangely enough, however, as iconic and well known as the Egyptian pyramids are, we don't know exactly how they came to be. Early theories claim that the Egyptians ordered legions of enslaved people to build their monuments, and while slavery did prosper in ancient Egypt, it was paid laborers and not slaves that constructed these monuments to the gods. If a builder passed away whilst constructing a pyramid, they would be buried in an honorable tomb close to the pyramid they were building, and would be equipped with all the supplies needed to succeed in getting to Aru safely. There is no doubt that it would have been risky and difficult work, but they were thought to have been paid a fair wage and were not mistreated. One of the largest mysteries surrounding the pyramids concerns the many questions historians still have regarding the movement of the colossal stone blocks with enough accuracy to build a structurally sound monument of great height. Existing theories are numerous, but none are conclusive. The pyramids were potentially constructed through the use of wooden sleds, upon which the blocks were placed and dragged up a scaffold to be placed atop the growing structure. Lubricant may have been used to help the blocks fit in against the others, and as of yet undetermined mathematical technologies or understandings may have been used to calculate where each block should go. The pyramids located at Giza are in perfect alignment with one another, and the corners point directly to the temple of Ra, the sun god at Heliopolis, which in turn is aligned with the constellation of Orion. This positioning indicates that the ancient Egyptians were much more advanced than we first thought, capable of an excellent degree of planning, calculating, and technological prowess for their time. Unfortunately, this technological skill has been interpreted by some as evidence for the interference of extraterrestrial life on ancient civilizations. These pseudo-archaeologists will argue that the ancient Egyptians simply did not possess the technology required to build monuments such as the pyramids. and therefore a more advanced life form, such as organisms from another planet, must have been involved. It goes without saying that there is absolutely no evidence for this anywhere in the historical record, and such debates can often lead to real, qualified archaeologists being dubbed as hiders of the truth by people who believe in these wild theories. Moreover, such theories have been interpreted by modern writers as racist, recognizing the fact that extraterrestrial life is rarely associated with European civilizations such as ancient Rome or Greece, who are often credited with building their own wonders without the need of help from a perceived higher power. So the ancient Egyptians did indeed build their own monuments to the gods, but exactly how is yet to be uncovered. With further examinations and study from some of the world's top archaeologists, hopefully this mystery will be solved soon. In 1954, Kamel el-Malek, a famed Egyptian archaeologist, made one of the most peculiar discoveries in ancient Egyptian history. Not far from Giza, in the middle of the desert, encased in the bedrock of an archaeological dig, was, of all things, a ship. 43 meters long and 6 meters wide. This was in fact the world's oldest intact, albeit disassembled ship, and moreover was immaculately preserved. In fact, scientists believe that if the ship was placed upon the waters of a lake or a wide river today, it could indeed sail successfully without sinking. Today, it is referred to as the Khufu ship, thought to be closely associated with the pharaoh of the same name. One of the first things Malek noted about his find was the excellent craftsmanship that had gone into designing and building the ship. Constructed from the finest Lebanon cedar wood, with bent planks and mortise and tenon joints crafted from thorn trees, it was clear that considerable knowledge and training had gone into building the vessel. But strangely, it may never have been intended to set sail in the first place. It lacked a keel, and there was no room for any structures that would have permitted rigging or rowing. So what was it used for? While the ship had at one point definitely been constructed, when Malek discovered it, it was not. It had carefully been disassembled and placed in a pit next to the Pyramids of Giza, excavated from solid bedrock. The locations in which the components of the ship were placed were logical, with adjacent pieces being next to one another. The ship was removed from the bedrock and reassembled, and now resides in the Giza Museum at the site it was discovered. Studies on the ship have not shown anything conclusive, but one theory persists. It may have been a symbolic funeral barge, buried alongside the tombs of the pharaohs, intended to carry them to Aru upon their passing. Whatever the case, it is a startling and significant find that offers us a valuable insight into the beliefs and craftsmanship practices of the ancient Egyptians. While highly unlikely that it was a vessel that was ever supposed to set sail on physical water, it is interesting to wonder how the Egyptians viewed this ship in their mythology. Picturing it drifting through the misty reed beds of the afterlife as it carried the deceased ruler of Egypt to his final resting place is quite the image. The Sphinx, a half-man, half-lion hybrid, occasionally depicted with the wings of an eagle, is a staple mythological creature in the folklore of both ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, famous for its ruthlessness and complexity. In ancient Greek mythology, the Sphinx is said to have guarded the city of Thebes, where it would ask a passerby a riddle. If the traveler answered correctly, they would be permitted entry to the city. But if they failed to complete the riddle, they would be ruthlessly mauled and eaten. The riddle in question was, what goes on 4 feet in the morning, 2 feet in midday, and 3 feet in the evening? Can you solve it? The answer, as provided correctly by Oedipus in Greek folklore, is man. an animal that crawls on 4 feet in the early stages of life, or morning, 2 feet in the middle stages of life, or midday, and 3 feet at the end of life, or evening, with the help of a walking stick. In the folktale, the Sphinx opts to take her own life, or is slain by Oedipus. In a strange twist of irony, it turns out that the real-life Sphinx, a huge monument located again in Giza, Egypt, has some unanswered riddles of its own. The Great Sphinx of Giza, located near to the iconic pyramids, is an incredible 73 meters long from paw to tail, 20 meters high at the head, and 19 meters wide at the waist. Of the many large-scale sculptures discovered from ancient Egypt, the Sphinx is the oldest and one of the very largest. Thought to have been constructed in the reign of Pharaoh Khafre between 2558 and 2532 BC, the statue shows a wingless sphinx with the body of a lion and the head of an Egyptian pharaoh. Constructed from limestone, its believed purpose was to resurrect the soul of Khafre upon his death, harnessing the power of the mighty sun to ensure he lived forever in the afterlife. This, however, is the first mystery. Historians do not know for certain exactly why the Sphinx was built in the manner and location it is, and this suggestion has simply been inferred from the purposes of other monuments and sculptures from this time. Other theories describe the Sphinx as a mythological guardian of the Giza Plateau, presumably devouring those whom it deems a threat to the bodies and souls of the deceased Egyptians who lay there. Look at the Sphinx head-on and you'll note the lack of an important facial feature. It doesn't have a nose. There certainly was one there when it was built, and you can see the damage to the stone where the nose has been broken somewhere throughout the course of history. But historians and scientists have no clues as to how the nose was broken, or where the remnants of it may be now. While it is not known who broke the nose, there are theories. Some claims suggest that a religious vandal by the name of Sa'im el-Dar destroyed the nose in 1378 CE, when he saw Egyptian citizens making offerings to the sculpture to pray for a good harvest. Al-Dar, a Sufi Muslim, was angered by the veneration of the old gods and destroyed a key feature of what he deemed to be a false idol, intending to disrupt the peace and promote Islam amidst the populace. Some reports say that he was shortly captured by authorities and executed for vandalism. Other theories put the blame on Napoleon Bonaparte and his troops throughout the course of their French campaign in Egypt between 1798 and 1801, where a misfired cannonball struck the face of the statue, damaging it forever. This, however, is now thought to be nothing more than superstition and legend, and it may well be that Sa'im el-Dar is to blame. In reality, though, we simply don't know. While we don't know who broke the Sphinx's nose, we have a good idea as to how they achieved it. There is evidence that it was a deliberate act of vandalism, where rods and chisels were carefully utilized to chip away the key points that held the sculpture's face together. Striking it repeatedly with these tools would have pried it loose, sending it toppling to the ground in several pieces. Fortunately, we may soon be able to solve some of the Sphinx's real-life riddles. Underground radar studies are being used to discover potential passageways and structures which may lie underneath the Sphinx itself, which are methods that will not harm the structure or jeopardize its integrity. The hope is that there may be items buried underneath the Sphinx that could give us some clues as to how and why it got to where it is today. While the Rosetta Stone, found by Napoleon's forces in July of 1799, has proved to be a godsend in helping modern historians decode ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, there are a few that have caused confusion since their discovery. Take, for example, the Temple of Seti I, located at Abydos. Within the walls of this ancient place of worship are many, many hieroglyphs that denote information about the gods, pharaohs, and culture of ancient Egypt. One of these hieroglyphics, however, carved in the late 1200s BC, caused confusion when it was rediscovered by modern archaeologists many years later. It shows what appears to be a helicopter, complete with a tail, blades, door, and nose. Conspiracy theorists and pseudo-archaeologists were quick to claim that this was the concrete evidence they needed to prove that an advanced civilization had visited ancient Egypt, with the Egyptians recording the visit in hieroglyphs. This, however, is false, and is one of the few mysteries in today's video that has an explanation. In reality, what appears to be a helicopter is no more than 3 hieroglyphs placed on top of one another, creating a strange, coincidental illusion. The hieroglyph for Seti I, a bow, lays underneath those for Ramses II, an arm holding a reed and an arm in front of a bird. It's an amazing coincidence, but it's nothing more than pareidolia, the tendency for humans to place a hidden meaning onto something, when in reality there is none. That's not to say that hieroglyphics themselves are without mystery, however. There are plenty that are still being deciphered, those that we simply do not know the meaning of. Due to advancements in archaeology and Egyptology, these undeciphered hieroglyphs are now dwindling in number, and we are learning more and more about ancient writing systems every day. For more language-related mysteries, it would perhaps be wise to turn our heads to other civilizations, whose writing systems have not yet been decoded to the same effect. Ancient peoples such as the Indus Valley Civilization, the Etruscans, or some of the inhabitants of Easter Island, for example. As we mentioned at the start of the video, there are many, many mysteries surrounding the people and places of ancient Egypt, and we have really only scratched the surface in today's video. There are many more strange disappearances, unexplained deaths, mysterious monuments, and more to examine, and we dare say there will be as long as ancient Egypt is being studied. As we uncover more about these long-lost kingdoms, we're able to both answer and ask more questions, as more meanings and mysteries are brought to light. Mystery, though, is part of what makes the ancient world so intriguing. Some lost cultures were so different to our own that there are simply countless questions we can continue to ask. For now, then, let's hope that in the future there is much more to be discovered about this ancient land.